Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. Real dads, tough issues, and a genuine love for a fatherless generation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Rivera. I'm here with Chris Lawler and Frank. I don't want to mess up your name because I know I misspelled it recently. Lomelli. Yeah. So
Good job.
Frank Lomelli. And we're here to launch our podcast. We have an idea. We thought we'd put it on the air and see how it goes. The idea behind the podcast is for men raised without a father, or maybe they had a father and it wasn't quite the best father he could have been. We're here to talk about issues. So it seems in most cases, young men learn how to be men from other boys. They're 13-year-old boys teaching them about sex, or 17-year-old boy teaching them, how a man should be. And I'm sorry, but they don't know.
Yeah.
And they're well-intentioned, but you don't always get the best advice. So sometimes you're raised with wrong conceptions on things. So the idea behind this is we get three men, Christian values, who live life married, children. There's been divorce in this panel. And so we have all this life experience, and we love God. So now we want to talk about issues and then hopefully enlighten people. A lot of times a young man who doesn't have a positive figure, a positive father figure, a little lost with these issues. And sometimes these issues, there's not even one answer. There's a spectrum of answers. And that's why we're here. We're not here to agree on everything. We're here to talk these things out. So a young man could listen to this, and even an older man too, listen to this and get some perspective. We are sponsored by Rise Church of La Habra, although our opinions may not reflect theirs. So we want to make that clear. Yeah, especially Chris's. So with that disclaimer out there, we do want to thank the church for sponsoring this and trying this out. And we'll see how it turns out. And, if God blesses it, God blesses it. And if not, it's not. That's fine, too.
Right on.
So I just want to first introduce Chris Lawler. I met Chris, about 20 years ago now. We've been attending the same church for a long time now. So, Chris, question. Married?
Oh, yeah. So married. 39 years married, the best 20 years of my life.
Awesome.
We know there was something there.
It took me a minute.
Yeah. He's trying to shipwreck his when he gets home.
Is that a trick answer?
Yeah.
That's funny. And kids, Chris?
Yep. I've spawned my share of brats into the world. I have an older daughter that came with the package.
Yeah.
When I married my wife, she had a 5-year-old daughter, so I got the package deal. So that means families blended. Not an uncommon thing these days. But then we had two of our own. I have my son, James, who's autistic. He's not with us today. He may appear at some point as we continue doing these podcasts. And then his little sister, Hannah.
Yeah.
And they're both 37 and 35 years old.
Okay. So yeah, Hannah's
35, James 37.
Got it.
Yeah.
And can you elaborate? Like you said, you may see James in the future. What's your concern about bringing him here now?
Well, James, he's autistic, but he's not your classical non-communicative autistic child. He loves to talk. He loves to be with me. In fact, when COVID hit, all the programs closed down, and he became attached to me. So he's with me all the time. In fact, I take him to work. So anybody, and I work in the business as a service business all through LA, Beverly Hills. Wherever I go, my security man goes along with me. That's the role I give him. So I'm doing small repairs in the home. James is flopped out on their sofa, and it comes with the same deal. But he's spontaneous. Mm-hmm. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And spontaneity can take many forms.
Yeah.
Most of them fun, but some less fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, if we continue this, we really want to make room for that here. You know, and it's all good. He really is. We're comfortable with it. We're all good. We know James for many years in church, so we understand the challenges too. And we're cool. Yeah. Great.
And by knowing James, I can say that if I can be half the father my brother is to his son,
yes,
that would be an amazing thing.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great example
Thank
of
you.
love. Yeah. Well, moving on. So Frank,
Yes.
married.
Yes. 11 years.
11 years.
Yeah.
Nice.
Was married before, divorced and married again. Marriage is wonderful if it's done according to God's will. It's tough if it's not done according to God's will, and then you realize that you got to get that lined up right, and it takes some work. But yes.
Were you attending church when you were in your first marriage?
When I was first married, I did attend church with my ex-wife, but she wasn't too interested in. She was going because I was going.
Right.
Yeah, and then that marriage fell apart.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So now you've been married 11 years.
11 years.
11 years. Okay, so we were talking about this earlier before the cameras were on. You raised 2 boys?
Well, no. My wife, I met her when her son was 6 and her daughter is 7.
Okay.
And but up until that point, their father was never around. Mm-hmm. So it was only her and the kids.
That's your first wife.
No,
this is
Oh, okay.
my wife. Yeah.
And your first wife, though, did you get?
I had 3 sons, which
sons.
now I believe he's going to be 30, 26, and 24.
So you raised all of them, and then you started all over again.
I actually, to not go too far back, but when I got divorced, she walked away from all of us, and I was actually a single dad with 3 young kids, very active in sports, always on top of them with school. So I got to really feel what it was like for a woman to deal with the kids,
Single parent thing,
and being that the man cannot really give cannot really bring the love and their nurturing because we're not wired that way. It suffered because of that, and so now I'm, my boys don't talk to me now, but I have hope in the Lord.
There's always hope. Yeah. Well, see, I love this perspective.
What about you, bro?
Well, I mean, okay, hey. I've been married for 25 years.
Amen.
When I met my wife, she had a 2-year-old son, 2.5-year-old son at that time. And I slipped right in as the father figure. The biological father's gone. So I think it's kind of a blessing. I know it's weird to say. I didn't have to wrestle with that issue. It wasn't like, hey, this dude said this, or all this stuff. Yeah, they deal with. So I just slipped in as a father, and that's an issue we should really talk about one day because we talked about how many issues there are.
Yeah,
the issue of blended families and the dynamics, and how do you approach it? Is it right or wrong? I know it freaks out a lot of people.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's very rare in this modern day. It's 2022.
Yeah.
Very rare that a family comes out of the box the way it normally does, where a husband and a wife bind together, have their kids, and that's it. That's becoming a fossil.
It's all
Yeah.
And so if you got one of those families, treasure it.
Right.
And it's an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of the families are going to be a hodgepodge of mixed breed puppies. We're all, kind of like mutts running around.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm actually one of the brothers from the church gave me this book to be able to understand this generation now. And one of the generations, and it just grabbed me by the throat, man, where I was just really like set back. It said, and I didn't think about this till now, it said that now in this generation, young boys and young girls understand and accept that their reality is single parenting. That the family home is not mom, dad, brother, sister. It's mom, mainly, sister and brother, or maybe dad and sister and brother. That's the reality.
It's funny. Me and my wife's been a stay-at-home mom, and we raised the kids, and then I had 2 more children after that. And I adopted my first son, and then I had my second son, Mark, and then I had my daughter, Riley. But the funny thing is, our house was always a magnet for kids in the neighborhood. Our kids, their friends, man, they loved our house. They would just be there. And it wasn't, we weren't always nice to them. Sometimes we throw them in the backyard, or, tell them to cut that out, or, you do that again, I'm going to talk to your mom. We had all the discipline there. But they felt safe there. And because we had a mother figure, We had a father figure.
Yeah.
You know, and without apology. And we had Christian values.
Yeah.
So you come to the house, you better respect that. You don't have to buy into what we're saying, but you need to respect that. So you're not going to come in dropping F-bombs or, you know, or vaping or whatever, you know, that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it's funny, they were drawn to it.
Yeah.
Drawn. So I have 3 kids now, and we didn't get into grandchildren. I have 1 grandson, and I have another granddaughter coming soon.
Congratulations.
So we're so excited about that.
Awesome.
Great. So let's start off on a personal level here, guys. So Chris, did you have a father figure in your life?
Very broken, very broken. My birth father, he left. My mom got a very messy divorce with my birth father when I was 1. And so he was out of the picture. He actually went into the Army, very brokenhearted. You know, you find these details later in life.
Yeah.
You don't quite see the real picture when you're young, because adults hide stuff from kids.
Yeah.
You know, we all do that, you know. Yeah. But I found out that it was pretty rough on him. So he wasn't there during my formative years. And that was critical, because I didn't really bond to him as my father.
Right.
He would show up and he'd bring little gifts. He used to sell advertising tchotchkes, you know, with your business name on bins. He'd bring stuff like that and give it to us. But he was just like this nice guy that would show up and have swag that we could loot. And then he would disappear. So he really wasn't my father. My stepfather, who stepped in after my dad was gone, he's the one I kind of identified as a father, but he really wasn't into the job. I mean, he was just a player in his generation, out for himself, trying to make a name, trying to make his way in the world. It didn't really father me. So, you know, who really I bonded to was a rifleman.
The TV show Rifleman?
Yeah, I was
Luke McCain.
I was kind of raised by a TV, and I would go to the Rifleman, and then there was, you know, Mark was there, and he was my brother, and Lucas McCain was my dad. I kind of looked past the fact that he killed 2 or 3 people every single episode, but you know, his values and the Old West values, I just identified that, and I really feel like God gave me that, you know, as a placeholder in my life. And it wasn't until I got much older, until I had kids of my own, the real healing started to take place, because I never did find the source of that kind of fathering coming in.
Right.
But when it was my turn to dish it out, I was able to drink from that river that flowed from out.
Right.
From inside out.
Right.
And you know, it's healed me having my own kids.
It's funny you say that about the Rifleman too, because it seems like it really, a male figure brings masculinity. And now they're calling it toxic masculinity, which I can't stand. Men need to be tough. And I'm not talking macho or nothing like
full
that.
Macho, no.
You know, but Lucas McCain, he'd punch a man in a bar for saying something wrong to a lady, you know? I mean, and he had a fight, he'd stood up and fight. And I'm not advocating violence or nothing like that, but we can't be so passive. We have to teach our boys to be men, to defend our wives, to defend our daughters, you know. And then I think Lucas McCain is the right guy because he was tough and he stood up for the right, you know. And so it's funny. I mean, it's a little twisted what you're saying, to be honest. But
but the difference between a bad guy and a guy like Lucas McCain, both toting weapons, both being tough guys, is that Lucas McCain stepped up and occupied the responsibility that was put in front of him.
Right.
He stood up and he fended for his son.
Right.
He ran that ranch that he lived in.
Yeah.
And if some kind of trouble came to town, he didn't run away from it. He ran to it.
Right.
You know, and that's the kind of masculinity that I was drawn to.
Yeah.
Where, you know, bad guys, they're the guys who are always trying to take the shortcuts. They're running away from things when it gets too hot. They're trying to take advantage of weak situations.
And not protect.
Yeah.
Right.
So Lucas McCain was a good placeholder for me. You know, he gave me some stability even through the chaos of my own upbringing. And I was really very thankful for it.
Wow.
You know, as you're saying that, my brain is just going towards my kids. And I know the things they watch and what they're into. There isn't one of those guys around anymore. It's
Yeah.
just
On
it's
TV.
just
Yeah, the
accepting,
media
yeah.
has dropped that.
It's like
Right.
now it's accepted to just be however you are because that's who you are.
Yeah.
So there's no role model, not even on TV.
Well, even on TV now, the fathers are always dopes.
Dopes.
Yeah.
They're dorks.
Bumbling.
Yeah, bumbling idiots that
Yeah.
you make fun of.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
there for a joke.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's so true. So now the younger generation doesn't even have TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does Disney cartoons give you? They give you single moms.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
Disney cartoons now that are it's a single woman with the child, working out there, making a living for a
Right.
better.
Or they give you Homer Simpson.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's a
or
father
what's the
figure.
one Bundy, Ted Bundy, or whatever the
Ted
guy's
Bundy.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They make jokes of the father when it's the father is there. So
that's right.
But-
And that's part of why we're doing this. So we have empathy for guys that
Yeah.
may have missed that father ticket.
Yeah.
And we can't step in and be your dad.
Right.
We can't really even be the placeholders. We're just kind of a spare dad.
Yeah.
Like that spare tire strapped
Right.
up underneath your car.
Right.
So, if you can't love the dad that you were meant to have, then love the dad you're with. And
Yeah.
right now you're with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And hear our good intention. Hear our stumbles in life. We're hearing divorce here. We're hearing blended families. Hear our struggles. Hear our heart. And I think I like that though, because they say more is caught than taught. When you can see someone who's lived a life and who hasn't had the prettiest, let's say, and some challenges in the problem, and you see how they handled it, there's a lot of learning in that.
Well, you have to remember that I know that generations change, but these three men that are here right now, we were young once and we were broken, and so we had things in our lives or didn't have things in our lives, and I think the difference now is that back then we had this upbringing, this mentality where no wuss is allowed, and a man does what he's got to do, grabs a bull by the horn, and then you're led to believe that you're the provider. So that's the key source of really becoming a man or a family man is you got to be the provider. As for me, that's what it was. But I realized later, much later in life, that I'm not the provider. The provider is upstairs.
God, right?
Yeah, see, it's not me.
Right.
But that's something that you believe for so long because that's what you were fed. So I was a teenager once, confused, afraid, scared. I got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
But I ran with it because I thought if I'm not, no wuss is allowed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So there was no time for sensitivity or tears.
All right.
Which there was, but on my own somewhere where nobody can see me.
Yeah.
But it's funny too, like when you're raised, like let's say from a broken home or something, you don't necessarily know you're in a broken home.
No.
You don't.
Like it feels normal.
Yeah.
You're still play with your friends, you fight with your friends.
That's the scary part.
And then when you get older, you look back, you're like, oh wait a minute, it shouldn't have been that way.
Yeah.
It's really messed up now that I look at it as an adult. But that's part of the learning. So, but Chris, let me go back to you. So, what do you wish would have been different as far as the father figure in your life?
Well, I had a moment. It takes me back a couple of years when my birth father, name's Blaine, when he was still alive, he's passed away a couple of years ago. He would call once in a while when I was a teenager, and I knew that what he was hungry for is he wanted to have a father and son talk, and he wanted to communicate all these values that he had holed up inside and give me his fatherly wisdom. But it always was so off-putting to me because it just felt like, you weren't there. I didn't bond to you.
Yeah.
You don't have that place in my life to speak to me in this way.
There's no equity.
Yeah, and I can't make up for the fact that you fumbled the ball when it was in your hands when you were young.
Right.
And that's not being judgmental. It's just I'm reacting out of my ignorance.
Right.
But one time he called and I was dreading that phone call, and I answered the phone, and he wanted to have this big, long talk. And so he started kind of going into things, and I kind of shut him down a little bit, like, stop talking to me that way. And then a thought came to my mind. I asked him, if you and mom hadn't split up, what would it have been like for you and me?
Yeah.
And there was silence over the phone, and they started saying, I would have taken you camping. I would have pitched the ball to you. I would have taken you to the Dodger game.
Yeah.
I would have been outside helping you build a fire so we could roast hot dogs. He started just naming these pearls of little father moments And when it was my turn to speak, I howled into the phone.
Wow.
My heart broke. I was just weeping uncontrollably. And then he started weeping.
Oh, wow.
And we spent a minute just bawling into the phone at each other. Like so much damage had been done. So many things have been lost. And it was a moment of reckoning for both of us of what might have been if things had turned out differently. I said, I can't talk right now. I got to get off the phone. And he said, yeah, me too. And we hung up. We never spoke about that again. But that was one time where I really felt like I touched the core of something that I needed that got missed.
Right.
Because my stepdad didn't do that with me.
Right.
My stepdad didn't have the kind of bond with me. In fact, I was kind of annoying to him. I was not cut from the same kind of rugged cloth that he was.
Right.
I was more of a sensitive, soft kind of boy, introspective, not the athlete, the out adventure boy, Tom Sawyer kind of guy like he was raised.
Right.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that connection either. So that's what was missed is my natural father had that entire toolbox of things to give to me, but divorce and the calamity of life took him off the job.
Yeah.
And so all that got left undone until the Lord had to, many, many years later, bit by bit, plug the holes.
Right.
And make me a seaworthy vessel again.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny. Like I imagine going through what he went through, there was brokenness in him.
Oh yeah.
And he rebuilt, but it sounds like he lost sight of men should live a sacrificial life. It's not about me. I got to figure out how to stay near my son. I got to figure out how to spend time with him.
Yeah, and it was part of his generational injury. His generation was a generation that thought, if I get a divorce, my best play is to stay out of the picture so that the new dad can move in and create the family. That was the tactical decision in the 50s, the way they acted.
Interesting.
That and the fact that he was personally wounded from his own fathering. See, that's the thing about these father wounds. They get handed back on generation to
Generational
generation
curses,
to generation.
Yeah.
And everybody grows up a little abused by the one that came before.
Yep.
And they, in turn, will ignorantly abuse their kids in some ways. Something will get left undone. Something that should have been done will be ignored.
And you think it's normal.
Yeah, and you have no idea.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Wow.
You know, one of the things that I've learned through time, I think now I can truly call myself a man only because of the Lord.
Yeah.
But what I've learned through time, I look back and thinking, man, did I have it wrong? But in that sense, I don't blame my father. My father passed away a couple of years ago. I don't blame my father for it. I used to, but I don't, because at some point I needed to wake up and realize that I'm a man now. So I need to really start focusing on what decisions and what choices I'm going to take. But because I was lost and I was prideful and angry and bitter, that covered up the reality in my heart, where I didn't know how to dig that back out until I came to Christ. He handed me the shovel and he dug the hole with me.
Right.
And he found the jewel.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now I look back at these things and I relate with what you're saying. And I know that I have a lot of work to do still to be that husband and that father. But now I'm up for the task. Why? Because I discovered a real love.
Yeah.
I'm loved. I'm special. I'm worth something.
Right.
It's no longer what my earthly father thought. Right. It's what my Father in heaven thinks of me now. That's what's encouraging, gives me hope, and it's the fuel to my fire.
Right.
You know.
Well, let's take a step back though. Frank, did you have a father figure in your life?
My father was an alcoholic. He was a functioning alcoholic. He was a very, very smart man. Everything he did, he excelled. He engineered, top of his class, number 10 in the United States in his industry. Accountant, graduated top, great with numbers. Supervisor, I mean, all high positions. He was all about school. But he drank, and he was the first one at the job and the last one to leave, and he resolved all the issues for every family, every worker, every company except ours. And so he was drunk behind closed doors, and he was never physically abusive, but verbally abusive. And I've learned through the years that I would have rather gotten a whipping than to be told the things that I was told. Like I was nothing,
Right.
I was a donkey. I wasn't going to amount to anything. I wasn't smart enough, good enough, strong enough. But God gave me something and everybody told me I was very stubborn. but I was out to prove that I wasn't all those things my dad was saying, to prove to him actually.
Right.
But I could never do enough.
Right.
You know? Praise God. I mean, there was a lot of pain in my mom. My mother passed away 12 years ago. That woman was by his side for till the day she died. He smashed that woman unbelievably. So I tell a lot of my friends that didn't have their dads, I said, I would have rather not have my father than have my father there and him not be there. That was more painful.
Right.
Because in front of his eyes and him existing, I was nothing.
Right.
You know, so if I would have thought my father walked away, as your father did, my father walked away, well, I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
You know, I hear that he did some things, but I don't know the guy. I still would have been a mess, but at least that pain of missing someone that should have been there, I think is very different than the pain of having that man there wasting himself away because he loves that bottle more than he loves me.
Yeah.
And I was his only son. I only have a sister, so I was the only boy, and I was the firstborn.
Yeah.
But you touched on something, Frank. The words. A father could crush his boy.
Oh, yeah.
A father could.
Right.
And so, man, I think everyone needs to understand that all fathers and soon to be fathers, man, words are important. Words can cripple, words can hurt, and those scars, man, sometimes they don't heal.
Well, you know what? I'm 54 years old.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a lot of cleaning up in my life, but there's still a mess. I have literally smashed everyone that came really close to me and loved me so much. I've literally just, I never put a hand on a woman or a child, but I slapped them hard and punched them hard with words because, again, I thought that was the way. You know, and I have a son. Right now, you were saying, you touched on something, the way, the kind of kid you were. My son, Michael, right now, which he's not my biological son, same thing. He was a sensitive, loving boy. That boy, at the age of 6, when I came into his life, he was just happy to have a dad. And he would wait for me at the door with, a hug. And I belittled him. I smashed him. I didn't do it because I was a bad man. I just thought that's the way you teach the sensitive kid to man up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were very different. Like you said, we weren't cut off the same cloth. And I'm thinking, well, I'm a man's man. I'm down for whatever,
Right.
and it's not that I'm not afraid. Yeah, I'm afraid, but even afraid, I'm down for whatever. But not anymore. That's not my thinking, because now the Lord has begun to soften and massage my heart and saying, you don't have to prove anything to anybody anymore.
Well, when you're in that moment and you've got that child in front of you and the task is before you, but there's been no instruction or bad instruction,
Yeah.
then all you can do is say, I'm going to make that kid like me.
Yeah.
I know who I am. My best play is to try to make them like me.
Yeah.
Right.
This is exactly what happens. Step back in a spiritual way. We were born into this world, but we were disconnected from our Father.
Yeah.
Through our sins.
Yeah.
Right.
It put a wall. So guess who stepped up and says, I'll be your stepdad. It's that enemy. It's the devil that said, I'll be your dad.
Yeah.
And I'll recreate you in my image.
Right.
So we're going to be all about getting as much power as we can. We're going to be getting about being as fierce, get on top of the pile, king of the jungle.
Yeah.
And he'll raise you. If nobody's else there, he'll raise you into the monster that he is.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's his only play. That's all he knows. And then we get saved. Like we've all had this moment where some way or another, we found ourselves to the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
And we gave our lives to Jesus. And then we found out what a real father is.
Yeah.
A father that invests hope, invests vision within you, that sees within you things that you don't even see within yourselves, and better yet, has the power to raise them up and bring them through, that can water you like a garden and bring out a crop of fruit within your life that you had no clue you were capable of.
If I may say something, I'm sorry,
please.
I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but I want to, before I forget, this is why I love being around this brother, because it's amazing to me, man, how you just you're never going to stop learning. If you draw near to the Lord and if you seek God, you never stop learning. And you said something right now to me that I just thought like, whoa, man, that's deep. My father, during the time that I was lost, I didn't even realize it, but I took it, was the enemy.
Yeah.
That was my adoptive father, because that was the only father figure I had that would listen to me, so to speak, I thought. And he was guiding me, and that was the only voice that resonated at that time, that dark time in my life, which I didn't go to drugs, I didn't go to gangs, I didn't do that. But it doesn't mean that if you don't do drugs and you don't drink, which I had the example of the drinking, I didn't want to do that and I didn't like drugs. But what I did was I put this facade that I was the man and put myself through so much. And inside I was so broken. But that father figure, the negative father figure was telling me, you got this. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
That's all I knew.
Right.
That's amazing, man. Thank you for that.
There's a, I know you guys know this, but there's a book in the Bible, Romans, and it talks about how when you give your life to God, the Holy Spirit will come in and renew your mind.
Yes.
And make you a new creature, renew it.
Yes.
And because it's funny, the stuff you're saying, Frank, I know church Frank. I don't know pre-church Frank, you know, and to hear that, I'm thinking, no way, that's not you, you know. But you see that what was the crossroads? It's, hey, I found God in a very real way now, and you learn and you change from that. Yeah. And I think that's the key, because I don't think a lot of men out there, whether they're going to have children or they have children now, I don't think they can make this change without the power of God in their life.
No way.
You can't. You don't got it in you.
If you think
this is a supernatural thing.
If you think that one day you're going to get to that point where finally I'm going to get it, I'm sorry, brother, you're not.
You're not.
Yeah. And the irony is, even if you successfully rehabilitated yourself without God, somehow you turn from that life of crime, you stop going to the gang, you stop drinking, you stop doing alcohol, and you rehabilitate yourself without God, you just become the most arrogant a-hole the world has ever seen.
Because now you're entitled.
Who does that look like? That looks like the enemy. Yeah. Right. So it's like, no matter what way, without God, the enemy is going to form you after his image.
Right.
We were created by God in his image. I mean, that was the blueprint that was laid down before we even entered the world. Yeah. But as soon as we entered this world where he's loose, he takes his job to recreate us into his image.
A recapturing process in this? Like, we have to recapture the image of God in us.
Yeah.
We come to God now. We're doing all the stuff, like Frank's saying, all the stuff, we're learning all this stuff from all the stupid people out there. You come to God, now there's a recapturing of that image of God in us.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a parable. We've been talking about parables in our men's group recently. And there's one image where a guy is walking through a field and he discovers a treasure hidden in this field. And then he covers it back up again, doesn't tell anybody. He runs and he buys the whole field, because the only way you get the right to the treasure is if you own the whole field. Well, that plays on so many levels. And especially with a boy, sometimes a boy will have an encounter with God and God will show him the treasure that he was made.
Yes.
But it's buried in a weedy field of his life.
Yeah.
And the junk and the crap that's in that field has accumulated all the years that he did not know the Lord. Mm-hmm. Well, once he submits himself to Christ, it says, reform me, rescue your original vision from what I have become.
Right.
Then all this work starts happening. All the construction equipment comes into the field.
Right.
The earth graders, they start reforming everything, and they unearth that treasure, that core of a man that you were meant to be, and your field starts to transform into something that showcases it. Not only showcases it, but raises it up like a mighty tree that gives shelter and shade and fruit to so many other wandering travelers.
For the next generation.
For the next generation, for your sons.
Right.
And that's how you break that generational curse.
Right.
And, you know, we have to understand that, again, thank you, because you paint these beautiful pictures, and I piggyback off of them because it's just amazing what you say. But that child, I'm picturing that child in that field. Well, I think one of the most important things that we have to understand is, yes, that's very true, 100,000%. But nowadays, when that child looks back and sees that field, it's like, it's too much trouble to go back because I'm on my own. I'd rather just keep
You already you know this. You're familiar with this.
So we have to be that stranger, so to speak, that's walking through that desert and happens to see this and want to clean that up.
Right.
You know, because we see how precious that piece of land is for some reason.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like when God calls us to do something, I've been there before where God says, pray for that man. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I could. And I pass it up.
Yeah.
And then I'm convicted saying, what if I would have saved that guy's life and I didn't do it? So we have to really listen to that voice. And that's where I think now we can understand that when there's a young man, it's easier to say, well, somebody could help him.
Right.
But to say, you know what, I'm going to step in. He might reject me most likely because they think I'm old or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to take that chance.
Right.
You know what, though? I have to tell you, I played that role for a lot of young men, but mostly friends of my children or guys in the neighborhood, kids in church.
Yeah.
They are drawn to it. They are.
They want to be loved.
I've even had this. I took a group of them. I have a little camping timeshare, and I'm driving them up to go. And the whole way I'm threatening them. Any of you guys bring weed, you're going to get me kicked out of my timeshare. This is, I'm serious. I'll leave you up there. I'm letting them have it all the way up there. And I started thinking, Rick, lighten up on them. But they ate it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone gives a damn.
It's because you're taking the
A man
time.
cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, and they gravitate to it. And you can let them have it, and they're cool.
They expect that from a mom.
That's the problem.
But they don't expect that from a dad,
That's
man.
the problem.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's so important, man. I know that you can relate to this. It's so important to me. If I would have had a Rick in my life, it would have changed me, man. Because a male figure cared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the dads were in the same position at that time, man.
Yeah, for the most part.
They were all in the same place. That's why there was 5 of us that gravitated towards each other. We cried together. We were pissed off together. We partied together. We did stupid things together. And what was the cause of our crying? And we were talking. What were we talking? What was the topic? Our dads.
Yeah.
Never our moms. Always our dads.
Yeah.
Well, we took the kids fishing recently. We went on a men's group, took a lot of the young men, young adults, young men. They don't know how to tie a hook for a fishing line. This is one I ran across. Tightening a screwdriver, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Don't know it.
Yeah.
They don't know which way to turn it. And I'm thinking, dang, it's the little things.
Yeah, it's the little things.
Yeah.
It's the little things.
They feel so incompetent.
Yeah.
Well, I had one other man that served a really critical father figure for me. And it was when I got to my teenage years and I got involved in high school football. I played for Maricosta High School in Manhattan Beach. And there was a coach there, Bill Cooper, who was the head coach. And this man did for me what no other man had ever done before. And I've had other men that came along and said, you're doing good. Yeah. You're doing great. Very common in this generation where everybody's a winner. Nobody's a loser. So everybody gets a participation trophy. And no matter what you do, it's the most wonderful thing in the world.
Yeah.
And kids smelled that. Yeah. They smelled that. I was like, you're just hosing me.
Right.
But what Bill Cooper did is said, stop crying, get up. You're capable of more.
Wow.
And it's like, I don't have anything left to give. And I was that kid that was so fat. Coming to play football, I would run or do an exercise. It would take a minute for my belly to stop jiggling,
Throw up and all that.
Yeah, and I'd throw up and said, just do it. Yeah. Throw up right there. The grass likes it. Exactly. And he kept calling me to something greater.
Yeah.
He could put a vision in me that questioned everything I knew about myself. Right. All the things that I had self-congratulated myself and thought were done and sealed up and I didn't have to work on it.
Right.
He opened them all back up.
Right.
And he said, you're going to be capable of more. You may not be the greatest football player, but you're going to be the best version of you that I can possibly drag out of you. Amazing. And I'm going to be hard as nails to get it.
That's awesome.
Because it's that valuable.
Right.
And when a man came into my life at that critical moment, that was exactly what I needed. And it was hard.
Right.
Other men, they can enter into these type of crucible moments in their lives, sometimes in the military. They go to boot camp.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it'll be some other experience where they're brought under the wing. They're brought into a fraternity of men that demand more of themselves than they would normally give.
Right. Yeah.
That is such a gift.
Right.
That's where my heart, if any kid out there is listening to us right now, and you're hungering for that, even as I speak, it starts to resonate within you, you stick with us. We may not know you personally, but we're going to give you everything we got, and we're going to call the greatness up within you.
Exactly.
Because that's what God has given us to do.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Amen to that. And when you talk about football, I was the kid that wasn't good at anything in football, but I joined because I thought, again, I wanted to prove something wrong. And I had a coach, and I went to Santa Fe High School. I had a coach that said, I didn't have you put that uniform on for you to be sitting on that bench. And I said, but I'm not good. And he says who? He says, I don't want you to come out here. He goes, most of these kids are not going to be professional football players, but that's not what the goal is here. The goal is teamwork.
Yeah.
Everybody gets love. Nobody gets left behind.
Yeah.
And dude, just those words were like, really, this guy cares.
Yeah.
But you know what's sad? In this generation, they're calling all of this toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And with all love to single mothers, because God bless them, I don't know how they do it. They can't teach their sons this. They can't teach their sons, oh, you threw up, now get up. Come on, let's get back into this. That's not going to stop you.
There are some tiger moms out there that try.
There is.
But they're miscast in the role.
They're miscast. Right.
You know?
Yeah. And they love so deeply. That's why they're the ones, usually, I know the story's different, Frank, but that's usually the woman stuck with the kids. Who's the one stuck with the kids all the time? Who's the one who suffers the most in the divorce? The mother. The dad's gone. He's starting a new family, and here's mom. She doesn't know how to handle these boys. We're crazy.
The reason why I was able to be the mom to my kids was because I had an amazing mom that fought through that drunkenness and belittling and taught me the role of a mother. So when I was left with my kids, I was able to play somewhat the role of a mother, understanding that I had to love them somehow, but I had to be a man at the same time.
Yeah.
That was but you know what? My kids knew how to wash, cook, clean.
Yeah.
That came from my mom.
Right.
I wasn't too proud. I wasn't the kind, I'm to this day, I'm not the kind of man. I wash my own clothes.
Right.
I shop for my stuff that I need. My wife is willing to do it, but I was just raised to be able to do this on my own,
And though, I do want to clarify, I'm not talking about that alpha male, head shaved, tattoos, beat dudes up. I'm not talking about that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that at all.
Yeah.
But it's okay to let the kids know it's okay to be a man. You don't have to take it to an extreme and be crazy.
No.
But a man does need to be a man. You have to be a man for your wife. You have to be a man for your sons. You have to be a man for yourself, for your church, for your community.
Well, nowadays, someone would say, well, then define manhood. Well, wait a minute. I'm not a biologist. We can't do that.
Right.
And it's all part of the strategic confusion that's being put on the world now, is that you can't even talk in these terms.
Right. Yeah.
This language is being eliminated.
I thought about this, and tell me what you guys think about this. 'Cause I wrestled with this question. I grew up fatherless. Well, early on I had a father, then he disappeared, and so I asked myself the question, what is a man? And I juggled this question for a few years. What is a man? And I thought, a priest? Well, no, first I thought, well, how many women have you been with? And your mind goes down that road. And I thought, well, wait a minute, priests are men. Those are, they took a vow of celibacy. So I'm trying to figure out how tough how many fights were you in, all this nonsense.
What defines a man?
Right. I boiled it down to this: sacrifice.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Sacrifice. It's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about is my wife okay?
Yeah.
Are her needs being met?
Oh man, and
does she
that's
feel
tough.
loved?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's
not about
tough
me.
for us.
It's
Yeah.
about my kids. It's sacrifice. And here's the funny thing and guys, throw in if I'm way off base here. If I live sacrificially for my wife and my kids, a woman will always outlove a man. The love I get back is times 2.
Yeah.
I can't, so I may feel like I'm giving all my sacrifice to them, but it comes back to you in love. And maybe not the love that us men want and how we think, but it's overwhelming. My life is surrounded by love, more love than I can handle sometimes. And I eat it up. And even then it still may be a little too much, And but that's what it came down to, sacrificial living for my family. It's not about me.
Right.
It's not about me. Now I do have me time, and I have my things I like, I'm not saying not that. But them first, second, and third, then I'll come probably fourth.
I was so full of poop a while ago that I told my wife, I don't need you to tell me that you love me or hug me, just with your actions, you do things for me, But I was so full of poop that now that I've walked with the Lord has softened me so much, man, that I realize now that I do need a hug.
Yeah,
I need to be told that they're proud of me and I love you. It means so much more to me. And then at first, when I was getting that, I was like, how do I accept that?
Right.
And that's sad that you can't accept this. Like, I don't need your I love yous and your hugs.
Yeah.
Show me. And it's like, no, man, that's not how it is. God is a God of love. God is a man's man.
Yeah.
But yet, nobody can love how he loves.
Right.
So he oozed love.
Right.
And that's the first and foremost that he tells his men is love.
Right.
Love your wife, your kids, your neighbor. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, how do you fight against that?
Right. It is confusing to a guy to try, especially a young guy, and living in our culture now, to come up with that definition. And I want to say, you know what? Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't boil down to a formula. Otherwise, we'd be trying to hammer everybody into a particular mold.
Yeah.
And the reality is, every man, every boy is going to grow to become a very unique man. But what makes you a man is the responsibility, the role you step into to take responsibility for what God puts in your life, for your personal garden. That was the first job of Adam. The first job description when Adam was the only being. You couldn't even call him a male at that point because there was no counterpoint female. Okay? That female was still a rib inside his chest. When he was here, the first job description is you're the gardener. Take responsibility. Name all these animals, name these plants. Now you're going to be responsible to tend the garden.
Yeah.
And think of what a gardener does. It weeds out the weeds. It waters.
Prunes.
It causes to thrive.
Yeah.
And it pours out its life to make other things thrive.
Beautiful.
Right.
That's the responsibility that a man really you crave in your soul because it's in your inherent design.
Right.
But how that expresses itself in your life is going to be completely unique to you.
Sorry, guys.
You know,
See, the angels love that speech. That's why
remember yesterday at the meeting, that's the Holy Spirit. The phone went off like that. That was funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, we don't have all the bugs worked out of this yet.
You know, and I wanted to
Episode 5 will have it much better.
I wanted to say for everybody that's listening or watching, you're only hearing this from 3 men, okay? It's only 3 men. I know you could say, well, that's these 3 guys' opinion or knowledge. But let me tell you something is we are involved in a men's group. We are involved in a youth group. And we're taking, and again, it's not masses of men or youth, but it's in our community, and this is what happens throughout. So we don't know everything. We can't fix everything, but what we're sharing is that here's a little bit of insight as to these guys you see with the beards and tall, and they seem like, oh man, I can never become like that. That's why we must not judge. Because you're seeing me right here in front of you right now. You see this tall guy with the beard. I'm a little kid inside, man, trying to figure out how to be loved, how to be understood, how do I belong, how to fit in, which is a lot of the stuff that goes on with teens right now is they feel they don't fit in. Well, you know what, man, don't let this beard and this height fool you because I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah. But you know what I want to fit into now most than ever is God's team. Because that's where I have found my healing, my understanding, my belonging, and my being loved. And so just you know, yeah, it's only 3 of us, but this is living proof of the miracles that do exist. Because I'm telling you, if you walked with me, if you knew me, if I would have filled my whole life, you would see the miracle before you. And it's still not done. It's still happening. And the exciting part about it for me, and that what I can share out there is that I am loved. Yeah. I do matter, and I have a purpose.
Yeah,
that's right.
What I love too, God is a God of second chances.
Yes,
we can screw up.
Yes,
you're gonna screw up.
Yes,
we screw up. You could go back. Hey, I'm sorry.
Over and over.
You know, yeah, and it's okay. The mistakes, the mistakes along the way are fine. I think a lot of people listening now a lot of the stuff that you think, well, everyone knows that, they don't. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes in that area. Yeah. But that's okay. That's okay. It's a journey. You can make mistakes. You can go back and say, I'm sorry. You know, and that's okay. It's all part of it. You don't have to get it right. It doesn't have to be perfect.
That's why God has this methodology of taking individual people and he draws them to a tribe that is seeking after God. A tribe of wounded people playing while they're hurt. Yeah. That's what I am. I'm a dad playing while I'm hurt. Right. I still have things in me that aren't right.
Yeah.
I still walk with a limp inside in many ways. But I'm determined to do the job anyway until somebody more proficient comes along and taps me on the shoulder and taps me out.
Yeah.
And the best thing that I could possibly have done, and what I would encourage you to do, is put your antenna up and find a tribe.
Yeah.
Because we have a tribe. 3 of us belong to a little bit greater
We got a
tribe, but it's
tribe.
not a big tribe.
No.
But when we sit in that room together, we're all men that are seeking hard after God's heart.
Yeah.
Even though personally our lives might be smoking and wrecked and be in a place of ruin, that's where strength comes from. It comes from the tribe, from the team.
Exactly.
The gangs in Whittier are not all bad. We're a gang in Whittier.
Exactly.
We're the Lokes in Whittier.
That's funny. But you know, it's funny you say that. That's where a lot of young men do go, the gangs.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny about the gangs? If you get thrown out of your house, those guys are going to put you up in their living room, maybe their garage.
Yeah.
But no, they're not. You are not going to be alone. And they
Yeah.
got your back. They got your back to
right.
the point of receiving a beating or even, you know. I mean, that's what and these young men are drawn to that, man. And they're drawn to, that's why our tribe, like I love, we talked about already our fishing trip recently.
Yeah.
These boys got to come. We were all involved. And try this. Out of the 5 who caught fish that day, out of 16 guys, they were all young adult and high school.
Yeah.
4 of them, that was the first fish they ever caught.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's a rites of passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was us saying, "Oh man,
Yeah.
you know, dude, I'm surprised. You know, surprised you're strong enough to pull it up." That's all that hazing is. It's. They cashed in. They had a place to cash in their chips by us looking at the fish they caught.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter's boyfriend just turned 21, and I don't drink, right? But I had a beer with him. I thought I have to. I know that sounds funny, but I'm not saying it's just for everyone. But his dad's, you know, deported to Mexico.
Yeah.
He's gone. And he doesn't have a dad to have his first beer with.
Yeah.
You clink your glass. You're a man today. Let's drink.
Yeah.
You know? I didn't finish it, but still.
Yeah.
But it was nothing to do with the beer. It has to do with those rites of passage.
And I was
that's
going to
what-
say, you guys don't look at the fact that he's drinking with them. It's something else.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more something else. But same thing with the fish. He caught a fish that day. And who were? There were men. Now, look, we may not think about ourselves as we're older men, guys, and they cashed in their chips that day with that, and that's important. And I want to create more of that environment.
Yeah.
And as a church, we very, very intentionally. You talked about crashing some of the youth events, which I found kind of strange, but I love your heart.
Yeah.
You know, like hey, dude, we're gonna crash. We're gonna be there. You know, your dad's gonna kick in the door and be there for you. You know, or that figure. And it's so important, man. It is so important. And I think the effects of what we're doing and those moments mean way more than we realize. Way more than we realize. You know?
You know, I was very selfish not so long ago. And I speak this because of my children now. I didn't have time to do what I'm doing now. Meaning that it's not really that I didn't have time. I just had better things to do for myself.
You didn't make time to do
I
it.
didn't make the time because I thought it's too much work and, you know, I never got to do this and this is what my dream is. But you know what, man? The minute that I submitted wholeheartedly to the Lord and said, you know what? I've created a mess with things. Lord, help me to do what it is you want me to do. And I didn't even know myself. I thought I knew my capabilities and I knew myself. Boy, did I not. But you know what the exciting part is about all of this is I'm finding out who I really am through Christ.
Yeah.
And you know who I am through Christ? It's crazy, man, but I'm a lover.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I can be. And for all of those out there, I don't mean lover sex-wise.
Yeah, you can
I mean
be-
lover of men.
Yeah.
I mean young
not
men.
even
That could be taken wrong too.
Well, you know, I'm digging myself a deeper hole here, but
No, but I get it.
but I
dude.
know that
get
my
it.
brothers are going to bail me out as you have. Thank you. But what I mean is, I can love another man knowing that it doesn't mean you're gay, knowing that it doesn't mean, and not speaking anything against gays, but saying that, you know, that's not my thing. The thing is I can love a child. I can love another man. I can hug. I tell my brothers, I love you, man, at the end of a text or a phone call. I couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
You're a shepherd.
That's it.
You're a pastor. You're a shepherd.
that's it.
Your eyes are open.
That's right.
And you're looking for who's lost.
That's right.
And who has need.
That's right.
And I'm so thankful that God made you that way, because it's a strong and powerful sense of warmth to want to pull up close to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Amen.
You're
Yeah.
a gift to us.
Yeah. Honestly, Frank, you're a dude, I'm jumping in with both feet kind of guy. And I love that, dude. I don't even care if you stumble or whatever, dude. You're in. You're in.
You know, and before people used to tell me, dude, you're always jumping in with your eyes closed. You know what? They did get one thing right. I always jumped in. I was never afraid, knowing that probably I'll create a horrible mess. I don't know what to tell you, man. I just didn't. I wasn't afraid, but I didn't jump in with my eyes closed. It made it seem like it. I just didn't know what I was jumping into in the sense that I never done this before. Yeah. But now, the Lord, I know how He wired me is to be fearless in the sense that, you know, have wisdom, discern, but jump in for me, and I got you.
Do you know how many people are so passive and they let fear stop them?
Yeah, I know.
And let their fear. There was something I heard, and it was a 72-year-old man who climbed to the top of Mount Everest. He said, "Dare to fail. Dare to fail." Yeah. That fishing trip, we planned it. I had no idea how it was going to turn out. One guy show up, too many guys show up, and don't have enough of everything. You know, dare to fail. This podcast, dare to fail. Like we talked about it before we started. We may look at this later and say, okay, this is the single stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. It's okay. Dare to fail, man. Jump in.
Yeah.
Man up.
You know, I just told my 18-year-old son, and this is last week, because he's now going out looking for a job. I didn't realize how afraid he was to get turned down. And we talked about it. And if I wouldn't have been where I'm at, if I would have been, if I wasn't sensitive enough or loving enough like I am to him now, and it's taken us a lot to get to this point. Well, mainly me, not him. I told him, son, right now that you're home, I want you to fail as much as you can, not purposely, but all the mistakes, make them now.
Right.
I said, because now I'm ready to lift you up, pick you up, dust you off, and not send you on your way. I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
That's what God is doing with me right now.
Yeah.
He picks me up, dusts me off, but He doesn't send me on my way anymore. He goes, I'm going to go with you to the door.
Right.
And then I'm going to tell you what you need to do. He looked at me like a puppy, man. It was like, you know how puppies just do their heads like this when they're like first learning commands?
Yeah.
He just like, what?
Right.
Like that was foreign. But that opened up so much more for him and confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made it okay. You made it okay for him to fail.
Man.
You gave him permission.
It's okay.
You know, and that's the dynamic I think a lot of men miss. Our presence is important.
Yeah,
Our presence is needed.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, let me end on that note. I want to be sensitive to time. Let's see how things go. Man, I'd love to do this again. I've really so enjoyed this time with you guys. And I was looking forward to it, and it actually surpassed my expectations. I didn't think it'd go this well. And I think it went very well. You know, again, guys, we're men from Rise Church, La Habra.
Yes.
Some of the views we've talked about may not reflect the church, though, you know, but we wanted this to be authentic. So I said, hey, let's come. If you get stupid, you get stupid, and it's all okay. But man, we really want men to watch this, men who didn't have that male figure, men who are, you know, who don't know what's right or wrong, how a man should act. A man who learned from 13-year-old boys how to be a man, and now you're coming back and hear our stories, hear our hearts, hear our struggles. We're not perfect men, and I think that's the beauty of this. And we hope this helps. That's our heartfelt desire. Any closing thoughts, guys?
Yeah. Before we take off, I want to pray for these guys that might be listening to us.
Amen, yes.
I'm holding a vision in my mind of not just boys that got shortchanged in the dad department that are struggling to find their way without anybody filling their tank in that way, but also holding in my mind young men that are married, or maybe they're not married, but they got a kid. Yeah. And that job is on them, whether they like it or not, whether they're prepared or not. Right. It's on them right now. Father, I pray that you would reveal to them a path they can follow.
Yes.
You'll put a lamp to their feet and lead them step by step in the way that will bring them to freedom. Father, I also pray that you would cause these men to embrace the pain, the struggle of transformation. Because if you make a choice to do what is difficult now, it gets easier later because you get stronger. If you choose a path that is easy now, you'll struggle all the rest of your life. Because you'll never get stronger. So bind with us right now. Let's make a commitment one to another before the Lord our Father, who I'm speaking to right now, that we will struggle to do what is right.
Yes.
We will struggle to do what is profitable, what actually works and what is honest, and we'll walk in the light as best we possibly can, following our own unique trail through life. But we will be that tribe with one another.
Yes.
That's what I ask for in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Let's end on that note, Chris, because that's beautiful. Guys, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, and let's see where it goes.
Okay.
Thank you everyone who listens to this podcast and
Give a shout out for that
watches
guy.
it. And we have the best engineer on the face of the earth, who
Amen.
happens to be my son, who I'm very proud of and love. And thank you, Marky, for all the work you put into this,
brother.
and we appreciate it.
God
And
bless you with many, many
Very
more
grateful.
opportunities.
Amen. And guys, thank you for your time too. I know how hard it is, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. So God bless you guys, and take care.
Amen.
Awesome.